So a lot of establishment Democrats are framing Donald Trump as the greatest threat to our American democracy since the Civil War. And this is incredibly problematic because whether you like it or not, Trump is not the greatest threat to our democracy because money in politics is the greatest threat to our democracy. Now, that's not to say that Trump is not a threat to our democracy. He certainly is. But he is a very, very small problem relative to money in politics. And so establishment Democrats are trying to redirect their constituents to a problem that looks like a problem, but is more or less a nothing burger relative to the real problem, which is the fact that they're in the establishment and that their voting record aligns with their donors. So I want to share with you guys this article that's from The Hill that really clarifies why this issue is so pressing. The headline reads, Dem Chairman, Trump, the greatest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. Now, why the Civil War? Well, because in 1870, blacks were given the right to vote, and that was a huge leap forward in our democracy. But right now, Congress has an approval rating, it's like 21%. And at one point, a few years ago, Congress had an approval rating of 9%. And we have to ask ourselves, why are all of the institutions in the government so unpopular with Americans? Is it because of Donald Trump? Well, the answer is definitely no, because this problem, this low unapproval rating, or high unapproval rating, low approval rating, has been around since the 1980s. And so this issue has been around for decades, and establishment Democrats have frequently been redirecting their constituents in these, oh, it's Donald Trump, oh, it's George Bush. No. Republicans are problematic, and they do a lot of things that hurt our democracy. But the Republicans aren't the ones to blame here. And it's not the Democrats that are to blame either. It's anyone who takes corporate PAC money or individual contributions that are relatively high. And that's why I support people like Bernie Sanders or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar. There are plenty of members of Congress that are not bought out by large corporations, but unfortunately not enough to represent the American people. And therefore, because of that, we have a Congress that is largely in favor of their donors and not their constituents. And we have a Congress that has a low approval rating. So let's talk about what the story says, and then we're going to get into more detail. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler, in an interview airing Sunday, called President Trump the greatest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. So this Gerald Nadler, by the way, is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. So obviously, he is going to hold Donald Trump as a pressing issue to American democracy, especially since Donald Trump is trying to harm the established institutions in our government, specifically the judiciary branch. That he's trying to go around certain things with Mueller and everything, and this witch hunt or whatever, and he has attacked the press and so on. So I understand why Gerald Nadler would want to focus on those things because he's the head of the Judiciary Committee. But to suggest that Trump is the greatest threat is honestly, to me, a joke, especially since Gerald Nadler has taken so much money from companies like Google. He's taken money from like Amazon. He's taken money from so many large corporations that to suggest that he's not the issue is just a way of redirecting his constituents. Don't look at me, look at Donald Trump. I view this president and his conduct as the greatest threat to the democratic system and to the constitutional government since the Civil War, Nadler said in an interview with radio host John Katzenberg, on AM 970 in New York. Whether it's threatening the newspapers or threatening the judiciary or calling people who criticize him treasonous. Nadler, one of the Democratic chairmen set to probe various aspects of the Trump administration, said the House will soon be holding hearings, including into abuses of power and obstruction of justice. Clearly, there have been major abuses of power, major obstruction of justice, obvious violations of the emoluments clause of the Constitution, he said. All of these have to be looked at. He noted that the hearings would be focused on any actions conducting in a non-criminal manner whether norms were violated and whether there have been threats to the democratic system. Nadler also said Democrats would seek to push legislation mandating that special counsel Robert Mueller's final report be made public. So yeah, again, he's focusing on the judicial side, the judicial institution and how it is currently being threatened by Donald Trump. But what drives me nuts so much is how these guys never talk about why Congress has such a bad approval rating, why Gerald Nadler has such a low approval rating. Why is it that Americans don't like Congress? Like, put Donald Trump aside. He has a low approval rating. Congress has a far lower approval rating than Donald Trump. Why is that? Like, if I had Gerald Nadler in front of me right now, I would ask him this question. Do you think democracy, we would have a sound democracy after 2020 if a Democrat goes into office? And I would also ask him, do you think we had a sound democracy back when we had Barack Obama as president? And I think he would say, yes, we had a good democracy. And to me, it's just such a sad sight to see when so many Democrats call themselves Democrats and take corporate PAC money and individual contributions that exceed $10,000 or even $5,000. So, guys, this is incredibly problematic. And, you know, you got to be very careful. When we go into the primaries, a lot of Democrats, like Dianne Feinstein, Joe Manchin, all of the establishment Democrats are going to be anti-Trumpers. They're going to say, I'm going to take down the Donald Trump message. I'm going to take down these Republicans. But unfortunately, guys, they're bought out by the same people, and they end up voting in the same way, not with their people, not with their constituents, but with, instead, their donors. And I want you guys, if you want any evidence of this, look at Beto O'Rourke. Keep in mind, this guy, a lot of people have unveiled that Beto O'Rourke took a lot of money from big oil and whatever, but just take a look at his campaign for a second in Texas. He almost won Texas. Like, this guy is almost a little bit establishment, but he won Texas. Almost, I should say. He didn't win Texas. He almost won Texas against Ted Cruz. Like, you almost win Texas as a Democrat. Something's wrong with the system, right? And take a look at all of the progressives throughout all of history and how they have been winning. Bernie Sanders has been in office since 1981. FDR was elected 4 times and he died in office. You tell me what the problem with our democracy is. Because it doesn't seem like Donald Trump.